Every business will succeed and will fail based on one of three things. The first thing you need in a business is you need technical expertise. That's the foundation. If you're going to open a restaurant, you better be able to cook.
How do you start Lila actually?
So we had these sprinters back in 2003. He was pulling what they call these sleds. You see these sleds now, they're quite popular. And I was literally watching him and I thought, if I could get the weight off the sled and wrap them around those tights that he's wearing, the muscle, the glutes, the hamstrings, then he could just run and we wouldn't have to yell at him about technique. I was there at the Moscone Center and there's like 8 floors of convention center there. It was massive. And on the side is 2 stairwells. So Dennis and I are walking along. We get to the bottom of the stairway. He looks at me and he says, "Look at this and never forget this. These are the fitness leaders of the world. Not one of them is using the stairs." And he asked me a question. He said, "We've created the better dog food, but nobody wants to eat it." I thought about it for weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks. And then I came up with the answer. You have to starve the dog.
How did you manage to go into the NBA, the top players of NBA like Steph Curry?
I didn't have to say anything to a guy like Steph Curry. In fact, I've never spoke to Steph Curry. I work with his performance manager. And this is the exciting part. All of them come to us. We haven't gone to any of them.
Then do you think this product is important or the brand is important?
At the start of a new company,
Hey, welcome back to another episode of the Entrepreneur's Journal. So today's guest, through his sport technology company Lila, has consulted for some of the most recognized international sports team and stars, including the likes of USA Track and Field with Sha'Carri Richardson, Golden State's Warrior with Steph Curry, elite badminton player Victor Axelsen, and our beloved BAM, Badminton Association Malaysia, with Dato' Lee Chong Wei. So with over 35 years in elite sports, Joe Dolcetti has seen what separates the good athletes from the great ones. And today he's here to share the untold story of how champions train, think, and live, and probably some juicy stories and also interesting moments with these athletes. So you do not want to miss this episode because you're going to hear it here first on Entrepreneur's Journal and what Malaysia can learn to build the next generation of winners. All right, so welcome, Joe Dolcetti, to the show.
Welcome, Joe.
Thanks, guys. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, and that's a very impressive resume. Took me a while to finish that. So I'll jump right straight into it.
It's just a long resume.
It's a really long, impressive resume. And I'm pretty sure you have a lot of interesting story to tell. So I jump straight into it. You have 35 years of journey across 10 Olympic cycles, working with some of the most best athletes, some of the athletes which we only hear about looking on the TV, like NBA, Steph Curry and all. How would you describe your career in one sentence and why?
Fun.
Fun?
Yeah. Fun, passionate, interesting, and global.
Global.
I mean, to describe my career in one sentence, that's how I see it.
Right. And when you mentioned about global, how did you end up here in Malaysia?
I did my master's degree back in the early 90s. I started back in the early 90s on the west coast of Canada at the University of British Columbia. The dean at the school of UBC also had a long connection with Malaysia. His daughter was actually the woman who was in charge of putting on the events. She was in charge of the event management company that was catered for the 1998 Commonwealth Games here in Malaysia.
Right.
So his daughter was part of the events team. He had been here. He'd actually fought as a soldier here as a young man, but he's now he's a world-class sports scientist, the dean at UBC. After the 1998 Commonwealth Games, his name is Professor Bob Morford. He was invited by Dato' Mazlan then, who was Director General of National Sports Council, to come back and do a complete review of the National Sports Council and the process of developing elites. So because, Malaysia had this great experience in 1998 Commonwealth Games, now they were hungry for more and really developing Malaysia time. This was Tun Mahathir's time, Malaysia Boleh. and so Dr. Morford came back. He did a review for a year, and one of the areas he saw that was needed was my specific expertise. Now, I was back in Canada at the time, just finished my master's. I was working in the NBA, working with Team Canada. Although I was very young, I had a lot of experience already, and I was quite up in the field in Canada. And this was still early days in sport. And he called me up one day in late 99, and he said, "Joe, how are you doing? I'm here in Malaysia. I knew he was there. He said they'd like to offer you a job for as part of the Sydney Olympics project for 2000. And I was like, that sounds great. Where's Malaysia?
Somewhere in the jungle, in the center of the world.
It was kind of like that, really. But I was in, like I said, I was always in for an adventure. And when the NBA at that time, it was okay. Like pro sport, most people see pro sport as what they see on TV. Working in pro sport is a very different story. It's kind of like being an assistant to a celebrity. The celebrity is the glamour. Nothing else is. And so I was already a bit bored with that marketplace in North America. Also, North America had a very limited thinking in the way they thought about sports science. I had felt like I had kind of understood that. And so when I got the opportunity to come to Malaysia, not only did I look at it from a global level as, this is going to be as far away from North America culture as possible, but also what I was going to learn in sport. I knew it was going to be life-changing. I didn't know what it was, but I knew it was going to be different because Malaysia had a national sports institute and their source for coaches was the world. Malaysia had Russian coaches, Australian coaches, New Zealand coaches, European coaches, Malaysian coaches, Thailand, Singapore. And in North America, almost everybody you met in the 90s was, and they all just think that way. And Canada is a little different, as I said, than America, where I'm from, Canada, but more or less it's the same. So I knew this kind of whitewashed version of life that North America lived was only one story. And I kept thinking, I'm going to get exposed to stuff over there that I've never even thought of. Because in my early years, I'd already started studying Russian systems and European systems through the limited amount of information we had at the library back then. So jumping into Malaysia, although it was a big adventurous step, it was strategic as well. I really was passionate about learning more about my field. And I looked at the Sports Institute and who was here, and I thought, this is a young, hungry, exciting country. There's a lot of cool things happening.
It is.
And the other thing you have to remember about North America, I don't know exactly, 30% of the landmass of the world is 2 countries. So there's nothing, if you go on a holiday in Canada, you go to Canada. Maybe you drive across the U.S. border. But when I looked at Asia and Malaysia, I thought,
a lot of borders around.
It borders everywhere. And I thought, Malaysia, Singapore, Vietnam, Thailand, Bali, Indonesia, Myanmar, Russia, China, Australia, New Zealand. I mean, it's overwhelming. And I just thought, this is going to be interesting. And I was right. In fact, if I look back on any decision I've ever made that I thought was important.
This is the best one.
Yeah, absolutely.
How long has it been?
25 years.
25 years, wow.
I thought I was coming for 2. I came on, most expat contracts, 2 years. My first project was the Sydney Olympics. And after that was the follow-on SEA Games 2001. That was hosted here in Malaysia. It was a resounding success. And I thought I was going to come here, learn, go back home, get another pro job or something. But I was just starting my journey. And Dato Mazlan, who I worked closely with, he was the director general. He kind of laughed at me after the SEA Games. He saw me in the hallway one day and he said, "So Joe, what's your next plans?" And I said, "I'm not sure, Dato." And he just laughs and he keeps walking and he said, "You're going to be here for at least 10 years.
And 35 years.
And I stopped and he walked away and I thought, what does that old guy know that I don't? But he was a senior guy. He could tell that I resonated well with the country and the people. I seemed to get along. I was passionate about what I was doing. And I think he already knew. He'd seen so many people come and go and foreigners and what. He probably already knew the kind of people that work and the kind of people that maybe don't. The ones that are going to be here long-term and the ones that are in and out the door. So he knew more than I did, but I remember laughing and he was right. I was at Sports Council itself for almost 10 years.
So you started out as a competitive athlete, right? A professional athlete before you came to Malaysia.
Well, if you grew up in North America, you're an athlete almost always. It's sort of
but
like
not professionally, right?
No,
you were
I had a dream like a lot of young people did, and who was very athletic. I played sports my whole life. I still play sports. I'm still highly competitive in sport, as well as the coaching side. But my goal was American football.
Right.
And I was good. I had certainly had all the talent to be that. I got a bad injury. And nowadays people would know that injury. It's an ACL. I tore my
Oh, it
ACL.
was your ACL.
okay.
I tore my ACL, unfortunately, in a bar fight.
Oh, man.
And that kind of tells you about the hometown I grew up in. I tore my ACL in a bar fight. I won the fight, but I lost the war. But back then,
Big price to pay.
this was, college days, 19, 20 years old in the early 80s. And when you tore an ACL, for anybody who's listening now and tears their ACL and they go see the doctor and 6 months later they're playing, at that time, you tore your ACL, sports finished. There's no surgery. There's no replacement. There's no rehab. You have an unstable knee. You'll never play in contact. And that was the story. So in that one night, any thought I had about playing football for a future was gone.
Wow.
And so within, I don't usually sit around wallowing on things too much. I literally that day when I heard the doctor say football's over, I just thought, well, if I can't play it, then I'm going to coach it.
Right. So that's how you started your
Like that.
entrepreneurship.
And well, the whole journey. And then I literally just thought, well, then I just started reading up on training. And I thought the first person I need to train is me. Because now here I've got this unstable knee. What do I need to do? Because I'm not stopping sports. Maybe I can't play in the NFL, but I'm not quitting sport. So I had to figure out back then in the 80s, because there wasn't many people doing anything with an ACL. Or how do you make your legs strong? So I was already studying sports science. Well, back then they just called it physical education. Sports science is a relatively new term. So I started studying about the knee. I started rehabbing myself. And in that journey of building myself and my leg up to continue in sports, I learned a lot about training. And so I was on a mission. And I was on such a mission that I was even within a year or two after that, my professors at the university were even asking me to teach courses on strength training for the other students. And next thing you know, the national wrestling coach comes in. There I was 20 years old, and he comes in and asks me to train the national wrestling team for the Pan Am Games because I was the only one around who knew anything about quote unquote weight training.
Right.
And he seemed to think, he saw me and he was like, this guy, hopefully he can teach this to our guys. And so I didn't know I was slowly sinking into this career. But because I loved it, right? I loved the training of it. And every time I did something in the gym and read something like in muscle fitness, then I would go to my classes and our professors would be talking about this scientifically. And then I'd be asking questions like, well, why that? Why that? How much protein do you need? Why is it? And like I said, it was the career found me. Honestly, I think anybody who's had a passion and stayed with it, whether it's design, we were talking earlier about gaming and design. Think how many people in gaming started out playing.
Yeah.
And they became pros, they became designers, they became entrepreneurs. And it's just, and when you ask them, hey, what's your exit? They're like, I don't have an exit. This is my life. So that happened to me. And when I look back on that, I think it's pretty cool.
Wow. And you mentioned that you transition and start to find your career found you. But in that transition, is that where you did the whole bunch of stuff? Because like I said, you have a long list of resume from jungle guide to law enforcement and stuff like that. How was the journey like?
Well, there's I don't know if you want the chronological order on those. Like you asked me to define my career as, adventurous and exciting and interesting. Anybody who knows me knows I like a good adventure. And so I'm always grabbing opportunities that are exciting, and I think, and I think a bit eclectic. When I was doing my undergraduate degree, I actually got a job working in a maximum security prison as a police officer, what they called corrections. So yeah, I spent almost 4 years in a maximum security prison, and what a life lesson from, I think, like 21 to 24, 25. So all my students, all my friends, so I'd be in class, right? Show up at 8 o'clock in the morning in class. I just got an 8 or 12-hour night shift, in a riot, or, pulling somebody down who'd hung themselves, or stopping some, dealing with mass, processing some guy who just chopped his best friend's head off.
Damn.
And all my student friends would be talking about what they did last night. And I'd be like, dude, you have no idea what the world is like out there.
We should have just done an episode on this.
Yeah.
Asking all your stories from maximum security
well,
prison.
it's funny. The very first, this kind of stories that happen in those environments, if you worked in law enforcement, if you've been in the military and you've gone down those roads, you just see a different side of things, and that can be normalized very quickly. So I spent several years in there, and it was great because I was a student making great money. But I would come out, I would turn to my friend, and I won't say some of the things that I saw, but like I'd be 8 o'clock in the morning in class, and I'd turn and say, "You wouldn't believe what happened last night." And they'd be looking at me like in shock. And I was like, no, quick, physiology class. And so, I, to be honest, law enforcement and the military were things that always interested me because of the physical aspect. It did a very small, and when I was 18, I jumped in the Navy for a fun little program, and I knew I'd be good at that. And if I ever look back and thought, if there was one thing I wish I would have done was maybe more time in that. I mean, something probably tactical.
The Navy?
Yeah, the armed forces, something in special forces. I was fascinated because the physicality needed, the elite training that's needed, and the kind of environment you're in. And I seem to function well in intense environments. So, you kind of get drawn to that.
Wow.
Like I don't know if we were explaining about when I was there in the tsunami in Thailand, and I spent
in Phuket?
Yeah, I was there right on the day in the waves, and then I spent a month there doing everything body rescue to, it was crazy stuff. But yeah, when I look back, I thought if it wasn't going to be in sports, it probably would have been something in those areas, one of what are called like tactical or emergency services. But yeah, I mean the law enforcement thing, just to be honest, I took it because it was an exciting job that paid a lot.
Really?
And
it pays a lot?
Yeah, and in a country like Canada, it's a socialist democracy, so a lot of good government support. And so government jobs generally pay really well. A lot of people go into those, like my brother-in-law, my best friend. We all started, actually the three of us, my best friend and my brother-in-law, all started at the prison together. So, so we were all, funny thing is we were all bouncers, and we were all like nighttime security at the bars. So we had good experience on the street, and we got in, and you go through the whole selection, right? It's a whole selection process. All these people apply, you have to go through that. It's quite stringent, and you get in, you get selected. We all got the jobs together, and it was kind of fun. We'd all work together. Have this crazy life. Both of them stayed in. I continued my sports journey. Both of them did full careers and eventually went into probation and parole, corrections, and had amazing long careers and successful careers there. So I could see I could have done that, but I was already down that sports route. But yeah, like there's a million stories for another chat on prison.
I wish I could do one more on the prison thing. Sounds very interesting. Your brother's still law enforcement now? If that's
he's just he's just corrections, probation and parole. Yeah, and he's a manager in there now. After 30 years.
I see.
So you're athlete, you train and you coach now, and now entrepreneur.
Yeah.
What actually brings you into the entrepreneur space actually?
Again, I didn't. Telling the story, because you said you want to hear the story. I actually, when I look back, I was quite entrepreneurial. And as you get a little older, you start looking back and you think, oh, I was actually kind of good at this. I just didn't think I was, or I was thinking that way. When I was in my undergrad taking physical education, I remember PE, as we called it. And I remember there was a course in the business school. You have to you're taking 30 credits total. I mean, one class is a credit, whatever you do in your year. And so many of them can be electives. When I was really, really young, during my life, I was always very good in art, good in music, good in sports, good in science. So those areas always interested me. So I was studying science, but I had like different tastes. And so I remember in my first year of uni seeing an elective course in the business school, and it was just called entrepreneurial studies. And it had nothing to do with the science of the body. But I didn't even know. When I look back, I think I always thought a bit like an entrepreneur. So I took that course. To this day, it's one of the most fascinating courses I ever took because it was practical based. We had to design companies, build them, and then evaluate them. It wasn't on how do you run a company and just like a textbook course. The guy who ran it wasn't a professor. He was a businessman. And they brought him in, and he had bought and sold many companies. He owned, gas stations and restaurants and all this stuff. And he talked to you like a good Chinese businessman. It was the reality of how a business runs.
Yeah.
And so and I remember for anybody, because this is an entrepreneurial discussion, he said something in that first class to this day, I never forget. And it's the most important business lesson I've ever learned. And I see it all the time when you see businesses succeed and fail. And he said, just remember this. Every business will succeed and will fail based on one of three things, because you need these three things in place. And most entrepreneurs don't have one of these, usually two. He said, the first thing you need in a business is you need technical expertise. That's the foundation. If you're going to open a restaurant, you better be able to cook. Because if people don't like your food, sorry. You can say anything you want about McDonald's, but we all know actually tastes pretty good. Those French fries, 40, 50 years later, let's be honest.
I have to agree.
Yeah. And then after you eat it, you're like, oh, that didn't feel so good in my belly. But a month later, you want the taste again. So number two, he said, so you've got to have that technical expertise. Number two, he said, you need to know how to run a business. That is not the same as cooking. You need to know how to run a restaurant. We're using a restaurant as an idea. So you need technical expertise, you need business expertise, and the last thing you need is a financial plan. And the financial plan and the business plan are not the same. When you start a company, you need to know how long your finances are going to last, how long your runway is, how much you're going to need. How do you do that? Because the business team isn't thinking about cash flow.
Yeah, cash flow is king.
That's it. And I remember when he first said that, technical expertise, business plan, financial plan. Every company I've ever seen, every issue I've ever placed in the years I've developed this, and I've had a couple other foyers, everybody I've ever talked to, it's those things. People, you think how many times technical people start businesses because they're passionate. I love doing nails. I love nail salons. I love doing hair. I want to open a salon. Husband hears the wife says that, puts some money in. 3 years later, it's done, because they didn't really find a good manager. The wife thought she could run the business, but really she's terrible at running the business. She happens to be amazing at hair, but she shouldn't be doing anything with staff.
Yep.
And they really didn't have much of a financial plan because the husband put in 100, 200,000 to get it started. So there wasn't, it was designed to fail, and I remember that course. I remember going through that. Today, I remember those lessons, and I was fascinated with that. And I think ultimately, when I look back, entrepreneurship, like sports, is a challenge. And what I really love is challenge. It's kind of like law enforcement. It's kind of like those things. When I looked at that and I thought, that's a good paying job, but it's hard to get into. My first thought is, I kind of want to go through the process and see if I get selected, And next thing you know, you're selected, So I think at the foundation of it all is that challenge. And I think that mindset of loving and embracing challenge and being uncomfortable, that's at the heart and core of a champion or an athlete.
And that's how you grow as well.
Yeah, you're right. And I think I just found that route through sports because I was active. Some people find it in music, some people find it in business. So I'm not what you'd call a serial entrepreneur. These guys. They're going to open a restaurant, they're going to build it up, they're going to sell it, and then they're into crypto.
Yeah.
And then they're looking for great business. They don't care.
Yeah.
Like one of our investors he runs one of the largest private equity firms in Southeast Asia. And he's incredible. It's, I can say who it is. It's Rick Foyston. Rick Foyston, who's the CEO and founder of Navis Capital. Anybody in the business world knows Navis. And when I talk to him, he just talks about how much he loves a good deal. He's Harvard MBA. He literally started Boston Consulting Group for Asia. And so his whole forte is the love of the deal, and I realize that's how business people think. They love that engagement and that challenge the same way you can love sport. For me, I'm not interested in opening 20 businesses. For me, this company is the business. So I don't want to dump Lila, then open, go into tourism. Yeah. And so people ask me, is your passion business or was it this? And I think Lila is this whole route that I dived in way back then when I jumped out and got injured. And that started me in sport. And now I'm even in the world of sport economy and sport entrepreneurship. And that's kind of always been the route. And I know my space and my lane, and that's where I think we want to continue. So people ask, where are you going to exit? I'm going to be like,
Well, this is my thing.
My niece already wants to be the CEO, and she's got the brain for it. She's currently one of the best young hockey players in Canada. She's at university studying business. And I want to see it just continue.
Oh, you have
to
your
grow.
legacy ready already.
Yeah, she's great.
Nice. But how do you start Lila actually?
Well, it started like everything. I wasn't trying to build a business. I was building the product. In 2003, I was working with a bunch of athletes, sprinters, preparing them for the Athens Olympics. So we were on the track training them. And there's a training methodology or a training method where we use resistance. So most people think of resistance or weight or load as what you do in the gym, right? Because athletes need to be strong. And keeping all this very simple for an audience to understand without getting technical, everybody knows you need some kind of strength in sport. Back in the 90s and 2000, we all thought strength mean the bigger and tougher you look, the more likelihood you win. But now we kind of realize, well, wait, big heavyweights actually aren't the goal for most sports. Like what were we watching? Pillow fight?
You're not agile,
No.
not fast.
No speed, no agility.
Yeah.
And actually all that big heavy weight training we do in the gym, more athletes than now are moving away from that. So but we still need strength. So we still need some form of resistance, some form of weight. So we had these sprinters back in 2003. And he was a very famous Malaysian sprinter, Nazmizan, who's now coaching. And he was pulling what they call these sleds. You see these sleds now, they're quite popular. You got this strap behind you. There's a kind of a sled there. They put weights on the sled and you run with the sled.
Yeah.
And they're really popular in fitness gyms and they're just a trend. Okay. It's just another way to use weight. Now, the problem when you run with a sled is a sprinter has a very specific style and it's usually quite erect. But when you pull a sled, your body has to lean forward to become almost like a kerbao. You know, you're pulling, not sprinting.
Yep.
So the idea is right. You know, if you use this sled, if you run with it, hey, the legs will get stronger. It's the right thinking. But the sled itself is disrupting your skill. So the athlete is running with this sled. It's making him work. But he's also now disrupting his technique. And so the coach is yelling at the athlete, stay straight, keep up front, get your legs up front. And the athlete's yelling back, I'm trying, but I'm pulling this darn sled. And that became the case for many of the different types of weight training tools we were doing. Like if you've ever gone for a jog with an ankle weight,
it's like bouncing around on ways and really uncomfortable.
Yeah.
You literally define the problem.
I tried that before. It just didn't work.
It didn't work. And I can see, and you're a fitness guy. Now imagine a wrist weight for a badminton player. It's weight, which is the right idea, but it's too heavy. It's too bulky. It's moving around.
Yeah.
And so it's disrupting everything. So take that idea. I was watching this sprinter sprint. We were working with him with the coach. I'm watching this sled and I literally pictured Nazmizan. And if anybody remembers him back in the early 2000s, he was a 100 meter, 200 meter Southeast Asian champ. He was our Malaysia's golden boy. He was like our Carl Lewis back then. He's wearing these tights. And if you know anything about speed athletes, and if you ever watch sprinting, they all wear those nice tights because they like the muscles to feel tight and compressed, but they have the best bodies. It all looks good.
Lean.
Muscular. So anyways, here's this sprinter walking down the track, looking like a Greek god, wearing his tights. And I was literally watching him and I thought, if I could get the weight off the sled, say it's 20 kilos on the sled, if I can take that weight off and wrap them around those tights that he's wearing, the muscle, the glutes, the hamstrings, and those sprinters have those nice round muscles as well. I was thinking if I could get the weight off there and wrap it around him, then he could just run and we wouldn't have to yell at him about technique. If we could put the weight on the body. So I went home that night. I was at Sports Council at the time. My office was at Bukit Jalil. I remember after the session, I went to the early computer and I remember this was not Google. There was no Google. This was Netscape.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
back in 2003.
2003. So we were still just getting kind of used to using things. Most of what we did was still out of books and journals.
Yeah.
You'd use your computer a little bit to search, but you still relied on your technical journals. And I remember going online and looking to find out, what kind of lightweight on the body we could use. You find things like there was weighted vests. We'd use those as well. They're heavy, they're bulky, they bounce around. You can't go fast with them. there was wrist weights, there was ankle weights, and that was it. So I literally started thinking, well, why don't we, maybe I'll make something. I wasn't thinking about a business. I was thinking about these athletes, and it just became passion. So I went down, I bought these old wetsuits. I got these old ankle weights and wrist weights, started cutting them up. I started buying Velcro and started experimenting with ways to stick these things on the body. Anyway, if you think of a wetsuit, you think of that compression and neoprene, you think of different types of little loads sticking on. Because the other thing I knew was it had to be adjustable, right? Because if you go to the gym and you see a set of dumbbells, the dumbbells are progressive. If you look at the weights that you put on a bar, they're progressive. If you go to the machine, it has a stack and it's progressive.
Yeah.
This is a very important principle in training. If the weight or whatever you're doing for resistance is not progressive, then you can't improve over time. If it's a single weight, you'll use it, you'll get a little better, and then you're stuck. And eventually over time, actually, you kind of go back down. Your body stops adapting. So I remember thinking, well, we need to make something that is like a dumbbell that they can add more and more and more,
Right.
or less and less and less. 2, it can't move around. If this is an elite athlete, this guy's running 10-2 in the 100, okay? This is a A-level, B-level qualification for the Olympics. This is an elite runner. If he's sprinting and something's bouncing,
Oh yeah.
he's not concentrating on his technique, he's going to change it. Think of Lee Chong Wei smashing. Does he want to be thinking about some heavy thing on his arm, or does he want to be thinking about the placement of that shot? So the weight couldn't disrupt. It must be progressive. And basically the idea was the weight needed to go on the body and the athlete not even know it was there. So that became the challenge. And there was nothing like it in the world. But it wasn't a challenge I was doing to solve the world's problem with this, because it is a global problem. I was just doing it because it was fun. And all my friends knew about this. So I would make samples. And then I remember we were training for the Athens Olympics, and I had Chong Ming and Tan Phuc and Wan Hua, all the doubles guys, and who was world number one, Wong Chun Han. All these guys are good friends now. But back then they were athletes. So I was testing all these crazy samples on them. And they thought I was like a mad scientist. And so they play with it, but they were actually pretty good, And so I did this for 5, 6, 7 years.
You were making it yourself?
Yep.
Or so you were like
I had
finding materials and sewing it yourself?
all of it.
Wow.
I was going down to lot 10. They had the upstairs on the little 5th, 6th floor that most people have never been to. They had all these crazy little shops you could buy. If you're a craftsperson in Malaysia, you know where I mean. Sungai Wong, lot 10, that upstairs, because they sell buttons, Velcro strips. I was going in there and looking for I experimented with buttons and pockets and magnets, electrical manner. I like everything to attach this thing. This didn't work. And I was playing high-level rugby here. I was playing the National League. I was playing semi-professional sevens. And so I was also testing it on myself, testing it on some of my friends. But I had this playground at National Sports Institute.
Yeah, you got a lot of guinea pigs to use.
Yeah, and they're world champions.
World champion guinea pigs.
And my friends were all world-class sports scientists. So I was in this very unique position. So that's what it was like. And again, it had nothing to do with the business. I was just trying to make this tool that worked. And then something happened in 2008. I had a couple of friends who are entrepreneurial minded. One of them worked at Sports Council. He was the head of performance for badminton, one of my top students here, and now one of my very best friends in life. And he's worked with sporting organizations around the world. And he is very much a business mind, very good business mind. And he's half Asian, half Australian. And funny thing is, he was always telling me as he looked at it, he was like, bro, you should do something with, no, he didn't say bro, he said mate. Mate. Yeah, he goes, mate, stop playing around. He said, this is a good idea. You should, do something with it. And I was like, I had a good job. I love doing it. Because going into a business, I knew it's a big endeavor. And I remember 2008, somewhere around there, I was training rugby. I used to wear my suit. I had the suit now made. And I was training myself for speed, and I would have secret training sessions at Bukit Jalil at night on the track. And I would because I think if anybody's ever developed something like this, they know what I mean by when you develop something, it's almost like your baby.
Yeah.
And you're quite protective of it.
Yes.
And I don't want to show everybody. you know? So I would go have these secret training sessions by myself on the track. I didn't want all the athletes to see. And plus I would do it after work. So we'd work till late. 7, 8 o'clock at night, I'd go on the track, go sprinting under the lights. Well, this one particular night, the head hurdles coach for Germany, he's currently now the head track and field coach for Germany, one of the very best in the world. Germany used to come here a lot, like a lot of countries, like when Brazil came in 2002 World Cup, a lot of countries send sports teams here to Malaysia as a training base. One, it's a lovely place. It's almost like sports tourism. And so they'll come here and they'll go for 6 weeks. The athletes get out of maybe crappy Germany during the winter, you know, and they come here and they do that. So Idris is the coach's name. And he was on the track that night. And I was conscious. He was on the other side of the track with then number 8 or 10 in the world, 110-meter hurdler from Germany. They come to Malaysia before the World Championships, and they were training over there. And I was on my side. So I was, you know, it's under the lights. And Idris comes walking across the field, and he just walks up to me and goes, Joe, where'd you get this? And he's pointing to all my suit. And I'm kind of like shocked, right? I'm like, why? And he goes, because my athlete, and again, you're talking about one of the best 110-meter hurdlers in the world that time. I think he was the European champion. And he goes, my athlete saw it, and he just said, I need that. They already knew what it was. It was weight, really lean, wrapped around the body, exactly where you need it. And you could run track with it. And you could run hurdles with it. And so they knew all that just by looking at it. And I laughed, and I just said, and he kept going like, where'd you get it? Where'd you get it? And I said, Idris, I made this. And he was like, can you make me one? We got the World Championships coming up.
Like Tony Stark Iron Man.
Yeah. Well, it is this full suit. He goes, can you make me one? And I was like, no, I mean, this one took me like 3 years to make, but I kind of,
there's only one.
And I remember saying, well, you can have this. And they went away, and he trained with the Worlds. And I think after the Worlds, he called me and he goes like, I need 10 of those. And so it's kind of like that entrepreneurial story of somebody just validated you commercially.
Yeah.
Like they want to pay you for this idea. And before that, I had never even considered that somebody would want that. But
it's like a light bulb moment for you.
yeah. And I went away. Then actually what happened then is I left Sports Council. I went to Qatar. I got a very good job offer. Everybody who's worked in Asia worked at the Olympic Council of Qatar for a while. I did too. I went there when they were doing the bid. They were getting the bid for the 2016 Olympics. So I was part of that process. I came back with some money, and then I kind of thought, what am I going to do now? It's back at Sports Council. But I actually just thought, I think I'm going to do something with this. And so I started studying, how do you run a business? On my free time, I was like looking at, what do you do for a business plan? Remember the things I thought?
The 3 frameworks.
Yeah, I'll do that. I spent 18 months developing a business plan before I started sharing it with people.
Wow.
And like everything, I think I like to take risks, but I'm pretty thorough in the way I evaluate them. So I was over planning. I was planning 5-6 hours a day at night, sometimes just in the evenings, just studying how to run a business plan, then looking at IP, then I patented the project. Those first steps, you start thinking, wait, you got to protect this first. And so it just goes down that journey. And the next thing you know, I started the company in like 2009, 2010. And then I started looking around thinking, well, we're going to need some money. I have a bit of money to get this going. I started testing on people. And then it was the process of, well, how do you bring a product to market and build a brand? And yeah, it just started down that route, and I threw myself in, and here we are today.
How long has it been, the whole process of building Exogen?
Probably the product itself went through almost 13 years of development.
Wow.
So we're the world leaders in this right now, and I'm probably arguably the world leader in what's called microloading or technical conditioning, which means problem solving with lightweight. And that's why, people like Star Athletics, for anybody who watched track, you saw them all win everything at the World Championships. Why Golden State? Why Paris Saint-Germain, the All Blacks? Why all these people came to us? Because we have a very specific level of expertise, and we can solve the kind of problems that change how athletes win or lose. And that's really our forte, where we don't do everything, but, as you know, in business, you have to really know what your genius is, what you're good at, what your USP is. And when people, like the whole modern version of it's now a market segment, and I created that. Wearable resistance and the technology around microloading and technical conditioning, even all those terms are the terms I developed. And now I'm watching this 25 years later, 23 years later, and I'm seeing our competitors using our research. They're hiring people that were on our research teams. They're even calling us and asking if they could look at our patents and all. And to be honest, like to have developed this new area and to hear like the term wearable resistance being used on podcasts in the US. And I'm like, we did that. And so we pioneered that. And that's been the challenge, is because there's a really high level guy who worked in the NFL and for a big program out of the US called Exos, currently in a high performance role in rugby in Europe. And I remember when he invited me over to look at doing their NFL combine, the NFL, of course, being American football, doing their NFL combine program in 2015, 2016. And he looked at the product and he said, you know what, Joe, everybody in the world in sport, rehab, training, fitness, everybody's tried to figure out how to glue weight on the body in a way that was meaningful. You finally figured it out. He said, but it's going to take us 20 years to know how to use it. And that's a really important statement, that last part, because it took us 50 years to adopt modern weight training. Now you do weight training.
Yeah.
I don't know, you big guy, you look like you've lifted something before. But
I did.
but remember, when I started in the 80s, nobody weight trained. We had to teach people to do that, but now it's normal. Now all of a sudden you put weight on the body, and the best coaches in the world call me and they're like, Joe, I know how to load a bar, but I don't know how to load a leg. So it tells us how we're still learning a lot about sport and movement. And so one of the things Lila has been really dedicated to, if you want to own the space, you have to be the thought leader. You have to drive the education, because we're in the information age. And this is the big challenge of this new generation, is information is there. The really good people know how to sift through information. Good companies know how to make things simple. That's the challenge of the modern era. Whether you want to call it an internet or an AI challenge, it's the information age. And the information leaders are the people that are the drivers. And as the company who started this, as the company that's driving the information, that's where we're dedicated most. But it is a challenge, because I get coaches. I mean, I could list you some of the best coaches in the world, and they call us and they go, this is such a great idea. I can't believe nobody ever did it. How do I use it? And so it's a challenge, because the one thing sports people are conscious about first is, I'm not going to use anything I don't know how to use, because I don't want to get injured. That's that injury. Even if you're a recreational athlete, injury is everybody's biggest fear.
Yeah.
If you watch EPL, NBA, whatever it is, everything's good so long as they're healthy. And the moment you get an unhealthy player,
Yeah.
you're going to see some winning change,
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, that's a lot, but that's kind of what happened with the product. It started out as a passion project. I think anybody who's jumped on something and did it for a while and somebody else saw value of, we kind of went that route, and we jumped into the marketplace, and then we had such great response from people. And now we're at the point where, it's our product's identified as kind of the market leader for this. It's probably the best product in the world for pure speed training across all sport. And that's also from the elite level to the weekend warriors and competitive recreational people. One thing you never hear in sport is, I joke about this all the time. In 35 years that I've been coaching, I have never had someone walk in my office and say, Joe, we just got to get slower. It's the opposite. The number one thing everybody wants is some version of faster. We just watched the pillow fighting. I can promise you, they're trying to figure out how to smack that pillow a little quicker.
Like whether weight.
Oh, smack faster.
Yeah.
Wet the pillow, make it heavier. So that's kind of our forte. But the really big areas will be going into the medical and sport and rehabilitation field, because it's such a specific tool for identifying and targeting muscle and movement issues. Like, we're now working with rehab hospitals in the US and high level, what's called return to play, return to work cases. And I think that's going to be where we sort of unicorn, where the product and the concept is really going to blow. Sports is where we start because sports drives the industry, right? Everybody knows who Steph Curry is. Everybody knows who Sha'Carri Richardson is. If I list a sports medicine doctor, Kenneth Cooper, everybody's like, who? You don't know those people.
I wanted to ask you, who is it?
From the Cooper Institute in Texas. And I think it's Ken Cooper. Geez, even I got the name wrong. But the reason we started in sport is not because the technology is for sport, but it's where you built the brand.
Mm.
And it's where we're strongest right now.
Yeah. Speaking of brand, how did you manage to go into the NBA, the top players of NBA, like Steph Curry? How do you convince them? Or was it true?
I didn't have to say anything to a guy like Steph Curry. In fact, I've never spoke to Steph Curry. I work with his performance manager.
Right.
So that's generally how that works. I've worked with a lot of elite levels, but Steph not. So we just have to be very clear on that.
Right.
But I've worked with a lot. As I said, I started my career in the NBA, and very simple. And this is the exciting part. All of them come to us. We haven't gone to any of them. And I am proud of that. And I am bragging about that a little bit because that tells you the value of the product. When they're looking for performance improvement, and this is an important thing to remember as we were talking about, elite people that are serious about getting better, they're not sitting around waiting to get better. They're out there researching 24 hours a day. What are the things that can help us?
Mm.
And so when they have problems, they call people that can help them with their problems. That long list of people all came to us. And one of our challenges right now is, as a small company, the best people in the world, Conor McGregor's guys reached out to us. I can tell you everybody from Real Madrid to Barcelona to Manchester City, they've all reached out. Our challenge is building the company so we can go out to the market and say, this is the company like Nike does, right? You've got to advertise that. And that's our next step. So these guys, their performance teams all came to us. The other thing that you need to know is sports science is a small community worldwide. We're in those communities. We have very good partnerships like with Auckland University of Technology, High Performance Sport New Zealand. There's a guy there named John Cronin, probably one of the best PhD researchers in the world. Him and I have been friends for years. He's been our head of research. He saw the product and like that said, AUT Springs, we want to be a research partner. So as soon as we got a partnership with them, every sports scientist in the world that knows how good these guys are is looking at us because they don't play around. And next thing you know, we're publishing research in the highest level sports science journals that the sports science people are reading, and they talk to each other. So the next thing you know, boom, someone's got an injury. They call us up. During COVID is when the Golden State Warriors called, and the guys that were in the high performance team, they were all some Canadian guys that knew me through a connection. They called us. We got an injury. I can't say who the player is. That means you already know who the player is. And he said, and we'd like to get a couple of suits. Can you help us use it? So I go in and I educate the team, consult with them on how that works. And then he calls me 3 years later and he goes, yeah, this is what he's using for longevity,
Nice.
And so we've got hundreds of case studies like that with the best athletes in the world. Some are public, some are not.
Right.
And, my job is to make sure some of those athletes I work with directly. Some of them I work directly with the coaches. Some we go in on the ground and do it. But my job is to make sure they know how to use the product. They know how to use it for the specific issues those athletes have and kind of be there as a resource.
And Malaysia is using it as well. Malaysian Badminton Association, like Lee Chong Wei and all. Is he using the product as well?
Well, it's funny. In the Star newspaper several years back, there was a big article on Chong Wei wearing his Exogen suit. And he was laughed because when he was one of the guinea pigs using those for samples. So when I finally got, literally, I remember we got our first commercial samples from the factory and they were beautiful. And I immediately called Chong Wei and those guys. I said, I got to show this to you, him and Coach Bach. So they came to Bukit Jalil. We were going to get him a suit to try. And he took one look at it and he goes, Joe, those first ones you gave me were so ugly. And I was like, yeah, Chong Wei, I know, man. It was those. I almost feel embarrassed now, but he was like, this is cool. This is a real product now. And so, yeah, and I mean, because we had access to these guys, they not only were highly supportive, BAM has been a really supportive program. Diving has been one of all the big programs in Malaysia, hockey, diving, even takraw, track and field, Paralympics. When we won that gold medal 2016, that was also one of our Exogen projects with Rizwan. Was it Rizwan? The first Olympic medal for Malaysia was in Paralympics, actually.
Right.
And I'd worked with them for almost a year with Coach Jaga. So again, because I worked here, everybody in sport knows me and I know everybody. We're a small group here. Anybody who's worked with Sports Council can say the same thing. So most of the programs here that are serious about winning and have some budget have already engaged us. And as I said, it's where what our challenge right now is going from all these great companies and programs coming to us to us going out and sort
mass
of
market production.
Yeah, that's that next step right now. And we've got some really interesting investors looking at us because one thing for sure, this is a growth area. Whether we succeed with it or not is up to us, but this is a big area. You're talking about the $300 to $400 billion wearable market. And the exciting part for us to share a little bit, but I can't share too much because the IP is important and there's a lot of companies trying to find out secretly about what we're doing, is the entire suit is now tech wired. So not only do you have the weight, which is giving you the solution to the problem, everything you're doing is sensor wired. So you're getting real-time AI coaching advice.
To track your movements and stuff, right?
And this is the only technology in the world that's an end-to-end solution, because I don't know, nobody's wearing a wearable in here right now, but if you've got a Whoop or a Fitbit.
I'm wearing a Whoop.
Oh, no, there you go. So that gives you data.
Yeah.
And this is the global issue right now. There is millions and billions of bits of data coming from wearables, but not even 10% of them have solutions with them. It'll say you might need to do something.
Yeah.
Well, okay, my blood pressure is too high. What do I do? You have to then engage a professional to help you. And the company probably provides a little bit of advice with some generic A stuff that they scraped and from somewhere. This is what you do when your blood pressure is high and you do this, this, this. But we need to have much more personalized, real-time solutions built into something you have at home that people can access. And remember this. Some form of resistance, something that helps you train or improve, whether you're coming back from hip replacement surgery and it's your mother, or you're a high-level athlete, you're going to be doing some level of physical training. But if that physical training doesn't have the data and the data doesn't have the physical training, you're not really providing a solution. And most importantly, if that solution isn't something they can use in the environment that's convenient to them, then you actually haven't helped anything at all. And we learned that from the fitness industry. The fitness industry told people, come to the gym and you'll be healthy. Only 5 to 8% of a given metropolitan area owns a gym membership. And less than half of those people use it. So that tells you 3 or 4% of people out of any major city go to a gym. What are the other 95% doing? They're not unhealthy. But so today's solutions have to meet people where they're at. The fitness industry's failure was we told them all to come to the gym, and people don't want to go to the gym. The gym's big and stinky. It's intimidating. It costs money. Parking sucks. And to be honest, most of the weight training solutions that people use in there are for a niche market. They want to look like you. They're going to go to the gym. But most people aren't interested in being buff. I'm harping
Bulky.
And to be honest, the new gym has changed a lot. They're a lot better. They're getting much more movement relevant. You got Pilates is coming back. It's about toning. So there's a whole new movement that's really good. But the overwhelming, let's say my numbers are off by half. That means still 80 to 85% of people in the world are not going to some kind of fitness center for solutions. So our solutions not only have to provide the metrics so you can track how you're improving, provide the solution, but allow you to do it personally and portably. If you go running, it has to be in running. If you like to hike, it has to somehow be related there. If you do it at home, then it has to be there. Because that's what modern tech should be doing. Convenience, safe, and problem solved. And that's what we're doing at Lila. And it's exciting times. But it's challenging, I can tell you.
And do you have your own personal AI coach? Because I heard your other podcast. I mean, you mentioned about like AI coach that you are building it as well. So everything is together is an ecosystem, right?
Yeah, it's exactly that. The ecosystem's the right word. So think about, I'll give you an example in physiotherapy, and this is a really good one because let's move away from sport. Let's talk about a person who hurts their back. Number one injury worldwide is back pain. Probably number two is the knee, right? Then the ankle, then the shoulder, then the wrist. That's kind of the breakdown of joint injuries. Okay, but back, for sure. Yeah. And it's an enormous cost still. So let's say somebody gets hurt at work or they hurt their back, and it generally happens with age. Some point you're going to wake up in the morning, you're going to think, how did my back just get sore? I didn't do anything. I just touched, I put my sock on. Well, that poor back was being beat up for 25 years. And what it's really doing when you feel the pain is now the back is giving you the bill. It's saying, here's your receipt, here's your bill. You're going to have to start paying. So you get this back injury. You get some time off. Maybe you have insurance. First off, let's say you don't really do a lot of exercise. You're like 60% of the world. You have a non-specific activity routine, which means you like to be active, but you're not necessarily a runner. So you run 3 times a week. You've got a running club on Saturday. You're doing the marathons. Sometimes you like to run. You do a bit of housework. Maybe you go for a swim. It's called ad hoc activity, right? So if you're most people like that, you get injured. The last thing you want to do is regular activity. You don't actually enjoy it. That's the reality. It's not your thing. But you just got hurt, so you're willing to sacrifice your TV time for an hour of physio. So you go to this physio, and the physio says you have to come back. You have to come minimum 2-3 weeks. So you come minimum 2-3 weeks. You do the exercises. And the first little bit of pain reduction happens. As soon as you feel a little bit better,
that's it.
I'm done. You're done. I did my 2 weeks. I paid. It's okay, La. Never mind. I don't want. But the truth is, if they gave you a solution, they give you a little bit of stuff to do at home. This is what I mean about the solution. What the physio's job will be in the modern world is, first off, you don't want to drive to that physio clinic. It's the inconvenience of time. Drive to the clinic because that person, this person's not lazy. They're busy. Maybe they're a little bit lazy, but they're busy. They have work, they have children, they have family, they're tired. So going to the physio 3 times a week, parking your car, going and paying for that, driving across town, these are inconveniences. And the entire thing about tech right now, if you haven't figured it out, it's convenience. We should have the ability to have that person come to the clinic, learn how to use whatever their program is, get it, go home, and never have to go to that clinic again. They can do it in the convenience of their home. Now they have to, and that's adherence, and there's tracking programs, and they can do that simply through your insurance. We track that you've done it at home. Your metric measures you while you're doing it. Your insurance will pay, and you'll get your work time covered at work so long as you've done it, but you did it at home. What level of adherence would we have? Now all of a sudden that person with the back pain's like, okay, I can do that for 6 weeks. I can't go to the clinic for 6 weeks. That's too much. But I can do 30 minutes at home 3 times a week. Oh, I have to do it. Okay, never mind. But you do it in your underwear in your living room because it's there. And so it has to be, we have to think about how people want to do things, not force feed them how we want to. I remember a guy years ago, I was at a fitness conference, biggest fitness conference in the world. It's called IHRSA, International Health Racket Sport Club Association. I was there at the Moscone Center in San Francisco, one of the largest convention halls in the world. And there's like 8 floors of convention center there. It was massive. And I was with a guy who is a revolutionary mind in the fitness industry. He's the guy who invented Kaiser equipment. If anyone's ever gone to a gym and seen air-powered Kaiser equipment, it's all that fast, explosive stuff. So I was with Dennis Kaiser, the owner of the company. And I was a young guy. I think he saw I was like him, but 30 years younger. I was with him. I had brought the first Kaiser lines into Canada back in the 90s. We were at this conference. We were downstairs chit-chatting. The conference had ended. And now all the best fitness people in America and the world are draining out of the conference hall and going back to their hotel. The conference is over for the night. If you've ever been to an event like exhibition, you know what I mean. You're leaving the exhibit hall. Everyone's draining out. Now, this exhibit hall has 8 escalators ramping right up the middle. And on the side is 2 stairwells.
No one is using that.
So Dennis and I are walking along. We get to the bottom of the stairway. He looks at me and he says, look at this and never forget this. These are the fitness leaders of the world. And they're all in the escalator. And I remember looking at it and he just says to me, not one of them is using the stairs. And he said, and this is the failure of our industry. And he asked me a question. He said, you know, we've created the better dog food, but nobody wants to eat it. How do we get them to eat it? He asked me that question. Now, I was the kind of guy who'd never let go of things. I was like the dog on a bone. He asked me that question. I thought about it for 3 weeks. How do you get them to eat the dog food? How do you get the dog to eat the better dog food? I remember thinking, how do you get people to do exercise? Because they don't want to do it. I thought about it for weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks. And then I came up with the answer. And I was so proud. And I remember I literally called him and I said, Dennis, I got the answer to your question. And he was like, what question? And I thought he was sitting there thinking about it all the time like me. No, I was the idiot. And, I think I was 25 at the time, but I was pretty tenacious. And I said, you asked me, how do we created this better dog food. We have all this great information. We've got all the best equipment. We've got these great gyms. Why aren't even our industry using it? And I said, how do you get the dog to eat the better dog food? I told him there's only one way. He's like, what is it? I said, you have to starve the dog. And then he goes, that's pretty good.
I never thought about that.
and I thought about it my whole life. So there's 2 ways. You can starve the dog or the dog is starving. Go back to the situation I mentioned about the person with the bad back. A person with the bad back now is limited. They're hungry.
Yeah, he has to do it.
They're hungry for movement. So he's going to do something. But our model of him going to the clinic for 6 to 8 weeks to get his full rehab done, that's a broken model in today's modern age for 3 reasons. It was an okay model in the 70s and 80s. There's too many cars on the road. Most people don't have the kind of time it takes to do that. And that environment is not going to provide kind of a long-term solution for the mindset of the person because everything else in that person's life has gotten convenient because of tech. So our fitness and our rehab solutions also have to get convenient because of tech. Because people are like, why do I have to go to the gym? Can't I just do this at home? And that's why YouTube videos are good. But there still is this massive gap on the equipment we're using is too general to solve the problem. And that's where the Exogen suit comes in. So we've got the solution to solve personal issues, not just provide general resistance. We have a way to measure that. And we have an AI smart coach that can apply that. And this is the beauty. I keep telling our team and our board, we're not competing against others. You can still have your Whoop. Our system is elegant with our solution. And that's probably one of the most exciting things is because people then ask us, well, do I need my Whoop still or my Fitbit or my Apple Watch? I was like, of course, because you use ours when you have a problem you need to solve. But that's your daily information.
Yeah.
Those are great tools. But now all of a sudden you get back pain. Now all of a sudden you got a knee surgery, a shoulder surgery, and you're like, I want to use this for the next 4 weeks. And the nice thing about that is 6 months later, you're like, oh, my back's a little sore. Hey, I'll pull out my Exogen. I'll get on my thing. I'm going to do a week or 2 to get it strong again because you already know how to use it. And it meets you where you need to meet it. And that's what technology has to do. It has to make things not just convenient, but safe and be real solutions, And so this is kind of everything. When I developed the company, I kind of foresaw all this because I realized the kind of solutions that you were getting out of a gymnasium are good general solutions. Don't get me wrong. I go to the gym. I go to the gym for one reason. At my age, I want to keep my muscle mass. Partially because of ego. It's nice to look good, but also it makes me feel strong. It makes me feel good in sport. And My Exogen suit I use for a very different reason. I use that because I box. And in boxing, I have a lot of technical things I'm working on, but also at 58, in order to fight the 20 and 30-year-olds that I fight in the gym, I have to keep speed. And my Exogen does that. So the other thing about our product is it's not, you don't throw everything away. You have to know your tools, right? And I think that's what people get turned off with when people say it's going to do everything, right? This is the new solution, forget everything else. Well, we're not that kind of company. We're like, no, this is a tool. This is what you can use this tool for. If you have these issues, we are definitely the best tool for that. But we're not this and this and this, and I think the public I think that honesty is important, but also when you work in sports, you kind of get past the BS stuff because you realize very quickly people are smart. Athletes are smart. They're going to know if this has value. And I think the other thing I'm proud of is the people that come to us long term. Like I think 40% of our customers are second, third, fourth customers. So it's not a gadget. I bought it, tried it. It was cool. I never used it again. And so, there's a lot of things I think we're doing right. And the big thing we've got to get right. Remember those three things? Technical team, we're the best in the world. What we do. Right now, our kind of next level is the finance side. We're in an investment route and the business side to capture that market. Those are the next big challenges.
Then do you think its product is important or the brand is important? The product or the brand? Which one you will come first?
A very good question. And 100% the answer right now. At the start of a new company, your brand and your product are the same thing because neither one is differentiated yet. So they're intertwined with each other. Now, here's a different scenario. Nike launches the new Nike watch or Apple launches the Apple Watch. Which one is more important? The Apple Watch or Apple? The brand or the product? 100% the brand, because they tried lots of products that failed, but they all have the opportunity to succeed because of what the brand has come to represent. But at the starting gate, your product and your brand, nobody knows our product really, and nobody knows our brand. So you want the two of them to have a synonymous kind of level. And it only will change when, one, people start asking, what other stuff do you guys do? I really like your Exogen. Do you got some new stuff coming? Now, all of a sudden, you have the opportunity to show what the brand is capable of. And we're already at that point. That's why now there'll be a separation in the next 24, 36 months on building the brand, because now we have multiple products. Yeah. And that happens a lot. And it's a great question, because when you're starting a company, you're like, should I focus on building my brand or my product? I can tell you this, don't do anything with your brand. Let your brand,
amazing product.
Yeah, build an amazing product, connect with your audience. And we're not perfect at it, but we do a lot. I coach 10 to 20 hours a week for free around the world and in Malaysia, just to make sure customers get access to great information. Now, that's not sustainable for a CEO. I'm burnt out like you wouldn't believe. But from 6 to 7 in the morning till midnight, I'm on 24-hour clocks because I'm dealing with the USA. Every morning, every night, I'm on. And half of it is just free. And everyone keeps saying, like, Joe, you should charge. Joe, that. I think we'll get to that. One of our business mottos is give, 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 ask. So we're still in the give, give, give stage. That ask is coming, right? But if those people don't have a good experience, there's no future. So I always say, make them have a great product experience. They'll remember the brand. I like the Lila people. And now we're already getting people asking, well, what's new? What have you got? So I can tell we're at this critical stage right now. This is a time, we're at a growth stage. We're beyond startup and we're beyond survival. We're cash flow positive. We're looking at profitability already in the next year. But that takes an enormous change in the company, because you're moving from small entity to corporate entity. And that's where, the question you asked, there'll be people thinking about, how do we build the brand now? Yeah. Because the other part of the brand is actually me, Coach Joe. I'm the IP, I'm the educator. All we're trying to do right now is, how do we replicate Joe's, right? From the app to the education, etc. Because all the best people in the world call and they want to talk to me directly because I've helped that guy or I helped that guy. And so all those kind of things I think are part of our next growth. And to be honest, I understand them, but I'm not even the commercial driver that's going to grow it. We're looking right now for our first level of the entrepreneurs. You know, the entrepreneurs, right? Our COO, possibly a new CEO, people that are come in and say, this is what Joe has to do, but this is how we need to build a brand in a company. I've never built a brand. I mean, I'm doing it inadvertently with the company now, but your question was very specific and you know what I mean. Somebody who's going to look and say, this is how we're going to build this brand. And I look at someone like Sha'Carri. When I first met her 3 years ago on the track with Dennis Mitchell, she had just started to blow up because she was this phenomenal sprinter. And then she had this terrible and wonderful experience of getting caught for having smoked pot. Remember at the Olympics. So she was busted, but she was busted for a legal drug. So the whole world half the world was like, and she talked about mental health issues. And nowadays mental health issues are real, right?
Yeah.
You know, and she's an incredible person. I know her personally and I've been on the track with her a lot. She's amazing talent, amazing person. But, you know, you get young people that are coming out now, and I think pot is almost legal in half the world right now. And people are using versions. I'm using the word pot facetiously here, but marijuana. And all the different aspects of marijuana that are being used for
medicine,
CBD, oil,
mental health. That, you know, Canada's gone there. And I know people that say like, you know, CBD or stuff like that saved my life because of anxiety and that. And here you have this young person talking about using some aspect, but because she's an athlete, she's held to a different, you know, ancient version of doping. And that issue went global, right? If that was 10 years ago, nobody would have listened. Pot was illegal. You broke the law. But now everyone's like, no, this was unfair, you know? And so she happened to be like a Muhammad Ali. She was caught in a controversial time. And whether it's right or wrong, it happened to be her. And not only that, you know, she's what they call the next generation type sprinter. She's got an iconic personality. And so this point is about brand building. I watched the team come in and now you can see how they're building the Sha'Carri brand. Like athletes, like the LeBron band, like SC30, Steph Curry 30. Some people just always stay the athlete, and some people become a brand, and that's a very specific expertise that I don't have. So I'm really excited to sit at a table with the next level of our business leaders that are going to come in and say, Joe, this is what we need from you. You're going to be over there, get that done. And this is what we're going to do over here. And I have no ego about that. I'm excited because I one thing you learn in sports science, I think in high performance is, you know, if you're going to bring on experts, let them do their job.
And you're an expert in the sports area.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And I built this product because I have expertise in design. And that's really where they need me, design and education. I've got the next 20 years of tech, none of which I've even talked about today.
Well, I wish to see though.
Well, it's some cool stuff, but you know, and I think these are, you know, from the entrepreneur side, these are the challenges being the CEO, the founder, deciding how to do that. So it's an exciting but challenging time. And I think at each level, there's always an exciting and challenge
Definitely.
to it. You know, and you've experienced that and talked to some amazing people on your show about that. But yeah, I'm really excited to put this in the next person's hands and say, I've got it here. How do we grow? Because everybody's looking at it like when people look at our company and they always say, how did you guys get here? Like, you're like this iceberg. You see this little Lila, and then under the water, you've got the best people in the world. You've got this new tech. Like, what are you even still doing in Malaysia? But the one thing we're proud of is I made a decision early on. We want to become Malaysia's first global sports brand.
Wow.
You know, Malaysia's home for me.
Yeah, you've been here for 25 years, right?
Yeah. And so that's kind of that's the journey of the company and where we're at from a next stage and the challenge. I knew developing the company in Malaysia was going to be very difficult because it's not a large scale sports economy. But I took that challenge on because I thought, as I always did with challenge, When I first started the company, people said, Joe, go back to Canada. You're a Canadian. Go start it there. Don't waste your time here. And I thought, yeah, I'm Canadian, but I live in Malaysia. This is my home. You know what the bigger challenge is? I'm going to try and do this from here.
Mm.
And that's resonated with people. So I met Cradle, Cradle
Oh, yeah,
Administrator.
Cradle. Yeah.
Oh my God, are those guys awesome. I keep praising about them. First thing, I looked around here and I thought there's amazing entrepreneurial support in Malaysia. Cradle's one of them. Malaysia Debt Vendors, there's MavCap. There's so many organizations. Let's just say the Ministry of Finance has so many good organizations, but in those organizations, the people are great. Like we've got several grants with Cradle. We couldn't have done that. We just had a big article in the Star newspaper last week. I don't know if you saw.
Well, no,
They did this big story on us because of what happened at the World Championships. All our athletes just became some of the biggest sports news stories, and nobody knew Malaysia was here helping fuel that success with Team USA. And so Malaysians are always kind of saying, wow, Malaysian sport's not good like that. And I'm like, hey, we're doing something. Why is Team USA taking advantage of Malaysian technology to win the most prestigious trophies in athletics in the world?
And why do you think, and back to sports and athlete a bit, why do you think Malaysian right now is like struggling to consistently produce world champions? Is it all comes down to like certain people have certain talents that most people doesn't have, like Lee Chong Wei? There's something about him that a lot of people don't have, and you can't out-train a good talent. Is that what you think?
Well, let's go back to business success.
Yeah.
If you want to have great athletes, you need talent.
Yeah.
Okay? That's your technical expertise. Second thing is you need a great system, business plan. Third is you need money. That's it. Malaysia has everything every other country has. And there's a lot of countries. So we have talent. We have incredible talent, actually. If you ask me, we have a higher level of talent than many countries, which is, I think, a frustrating part because we have really good athletic and aesthetic talent in the people here. When it comes to speed, power, technique, we have a good talent system at the grassroots and also just athletically talented people. So people are like, well, then why don't we do better? Two, the grassroots systems for a lot of sports, some of them is really well developed. Badminton being one, hockey being one. Wherever you see that reaching high level, our grassroots is pretty good. And then three is our financial plan able to support that. Unfortunately, Malaysia doesn't have the same type of financial support in sport that some countries that are sports mad do. And there's two reasons behind that. It used to. It had that support back when I first got here. The late 90s, 2000, I wasn't saying it facetiously, Toon, Malaysia Ballet. That was a time when the government was saying, we got a lot of money and we're going to have to drive Malaysia's branding. Everything we just talked about in our conversation relates to this question. Mahathir, right or wrong, love him or not, he was trying to build a brand. Because unless people want to be part of your brand, a country is a business. They're not going to do business with you. MotoGP, Formula One, Commonwealth Games, Twin Towers, tourism, multimedia, super corridor, all these things.
Branding from Malaysia.
People have to think about what a prime minister's job and many of the people in their organization are. They go out on business trips and they go into China and they go into Korea and they go into the US and they present. And what do they present? They present a deck, a slideshow, just like a business leader. Hi, everybody. I'd like to introduce Malaysia today. I'm Toon, I'm Najib, I'm whoever you want to say, Anwar, or I'm his deputy or whoever it is. And the first thing they're going to do, they're going to show a video that introduces you to Malaysia. And you're going to sit back and watch that video. And what are you going to see? Oh, hey, that guy's an Olympic champion. You're going to show a Chong Wei holding an Olympic medal. You're going to show a Formula One car whipping around. You're going to show Petronas and P&B 118. You're going to show factories in development. And the first thing you're going to think, you're going to get emotionally connected to, hey, this is a up-and-coming country. So when I got here, they were spending a lot of money on sport. Since COVID has come, I think Malaysia, what I've noticed from the Malaysian government is sport is like, yeah, we're doing pretty good, but we got to spend more money elsewhere. So the Malaysian sport budget has disappeared a lot, decreased a lot, especially after COVID. But that's also happened worldwide. So a lot of what we're seeing right now is the residual of really good programs that have survived. So when people say to me, why is Malaysia not consistently good? I throw back and I say, to be honest, I think Malaysia punches above its weight. It does well. It does really well. But, you know, the other thing, like Canada, Malaysia's goal is not sport dominance. Like, we like sport, but we're not sports mad.
Right.
Like Australia. They have a value statement around sport, right? So their grassroots mindset, the way people are involved, like I think Malaysia is still a developing sports culture. And I think, like, and I'll use this as parents. I work with a lot of programs. I'm working with some of the national programs right now, getting ready for SEA Games. They're customers, so I go in and help. And I hear athletes are going to work and they're going to miss training sessions. Now, that's the same problem in a lot of countries. But the athlete in the US will skip work and come to training.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
that doesn't make our athlete wrong. That just means it's kind of different. And what's happening now, I think also in Malaysia, with budgets have gotten tighter since COVID. You got to remember, governments funded COVID. So they ran out of all their money because they were paying for everybody to sit at home and they had to keep that going. So now all governments around the world, what do you think Trump's going after everybody? Because there's no money there and they're in debt. Why Anwar's taxing everything? Because there's no money there and they're in debt.
You have to print more money to deflate the currency.
Exactly. And I don't even pretend to understand that economics, but I understand everybody ran out of cash and we're in that now. So it's your triage list, right? What's your priority? Well, get jobs going again. Sport, badminton, good luck. Here's a bit of money. But here's what's happened worldwide. Government money for sport has dried up almost everywhere.
Really?
And yes. And this is what people don't recognize. So what's happening is governments have said the private sector has to fill it in. So go after sponsorship.
Right.
The brands.
Yes. So now badminton. How did badminton get Petronas? 50 million ringgit. Everyone knows this isn't a secret. Massive sponsorship. Where would badminton be right now if they didn't have that money? Where would they get their 50 million from? I can tell you it's not the government. But badminton also has people that could go and get that business contract. Remember what we said about business acumen? Imagine if it was Miss Boone that had to go to Petronas and Rexy and sit in a meeting and get sponsorship money. Forget it. They're not getting a penny. Everyone in the meeting would want a picture with them because they're superstars, but they wouldn't get a penny out of Petronas because you had to send a business guy in to go and get that money. So, and big organizations now have business people going out there to find sponsorship. And smaller sporting organizations, they don't have that business acumen. So they're struggling. They're asking the government for money. They don't have people that know out there how to go out there and do business. It's like the great chef whose restaurant is failing. And they need that business manager. And I have friends right now who are in this exact boat in businesses. They're technically great, but they don't have the business acumen and the business is suffering. And so sporting organizations now, they have the technical expertise to develop their sport because I think a lot of the government money is dried up. They don't have the business acumen and the financial planning to go to a sponsor and say, we'd love for you to be the title sponsor for Pillow Fight Malaysia. All right. And here's our business plan. You got to remember that business person isn't doing this out of charity. They're hoping to get some marketing out of there. Yeah. And they look and you say, oh, we'd like 6 million. Well, what do I get for my 6 million? Now you think of a proper deck, we're going to do social media engagement. We're going to help you increase your social engagement by 30% through sport. We're going to get these athletes are going to come down and speak at these events. All of a sudden they give you a business plan on what 100,000 in sponsorship looks like. And you're like, hey, these guys got their, this is good for us. And I think a lot of the sporting associations that need money are struggling to find the money that they need in the private sector. There is money, and also the private sectors, a lot of those sports budgets have dried up. So when this may get a little boring for people listening, but the truth is you can't say something like, hey, sport isn't doing well in Malaysia. That's like saying Anwar's a bad PM or Anwar's a good PM. There's so much you have to think about. So when you say he's a bad PM or a good PM, that means everything he does is good or everything he did is bad. You know, these are complex issues. And so what I see in sport is we have amazing talent. We've got good grassroots. A lot of the money is tough right now. And sport is getting more and more expensive. And so what most countries are doing around the world, and also what Malaysia is doing, is when I got here, if you were any one of the 30 or 40 national sports that would be in the Olympics or SEA Games, you were like fully funded. Athletes all getting free room and board, free nutrition, training. If you're not on the top 10 list now, you have to pay for services from the government. And they don't have money to do that. You know why? Because the government can't fund that anymore.
Right.
And so the sport environment's changing. So I throw back to people, if you want to see sport continue to grow in Malaysia, be part of the solution. You have to remember, first off, don't blame Malaysian athletes because you're Malaysian. They're the DNA that you are. Second, go out there and support sporting events. You know, pay money. You know, like that money goes somewhere. Be part of that. Third, if you have kids, put them in sport and be part of that sport development. You know, volunteer a bit of time. When you go to the USA or Australia or Japan or even Singapore, look how many people volunteer in the sporting world. So you can't sit back in your chair with your thumbs up like, hey, lad, it's football. What are we? You know, you're doing nothing except complaining.
Yeah.
You know, so and
Always losing. How can they
I'll lose.
so weak?
Yeah, and you have a right to judge that. You know, I don't think there's, because we're passionate about it, and especially now the one thing is, these organizations, like I know you, I don't want to go down I don't like to get into controversy of any of them. You know, they have their own problems. And you look at when you think, oh, this one was corrupt or they waste, where did the money go? That's a different thing. That's an illegal activity. But that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about the general growth. And I just think people need to remember, Malaysia does very well in sport for what it puts into sport. It punches above its weight. And one thing I hear from all the foreign coaches that come here is the level of talent here is incredible. But they do see that the level of support for that talent isn't always the same as maybe you see in a Japan or a Singapore. And I'm using Asian references rather than, let's not talk about
The US.
Matsalays. Let's talk about countries that we can look at that we relate to. Even like India right now. India is blowing up in sport because they're finally getting their stuff together. And, you know, they're starting to crack the ranks. So, yeah, I'm pretty proud of what I see in Malaysian sport. I'm always a big supporter of it. I know the challenges they face. There's some really good people volunteering. But I think the other thing is everybody's also realizing we can't support 30 sports anymore. We can financially really help half a dozen. And I know these are things YB is going through, you know. They don't have the kind of budget. So where can we get bang for buck? And a lot of countries are doing that now. The 90s and 2000s, countries were all funding everything. And now they're like, man, we can't do that. Sorry, swimming. You know, I'm not picking that as, oh, I'm picking it. Or sorry, ice hockey. We can't put anything in you right now. Badminton and hockey and diving and cycling, shooting and karate and some of the programs that are, you know, consistently doing well, we can help you. And so the country has to change its expectation. And I hope that companies continue to try and support, but I also hope that associations continue to try and find business people to help them get that sponsorship. And if people are in those associations and they know they can help, then volunteer that. Like, go up to your taekwondo or your takraw association and said, bro, you know, I'm a business guy. Let me look at your deck. How much money do you guys need? Because the days of the government supporting it all, those are over.
Gone.
Yeah. And if you don't change with the model, and like BAM is a perfect model. I mean, of course, it's our number one sport, but they didn't get big sponsorship for no reason. No, they would have those deals. You think Petronas hands out money like that to, the Petronas deals with the best sporting programs in the world. You have to know what you're doing. And I just continue to encourage people to help the sporting community grow here because Malaysia has an enormous grassroots sports program. Malaysians love sport, but I do see they love it until, let's say, the cutoff is 20. After 20, they don't see it as a viable future. And I get it. Are you going to make money in that?
Yeah. Yep.
I've had parents, I've had athletes come and say, "Oh, Coach Joe, sorry, I can't continue in training." I'm like, "Dude, you got the Commonwealth Games coming. What do you mean? The Olympics coming?" "Yeah, sorry. My mom said I got to go finish school now or come to work."
No, it's true. It's true. It's very true.
Yeah.
It's very true. Yeah.
Does your mother know what the Olympics are? You're going to have that experience for life. That's going to be on your resume. Do you know how many jobs you're going to apply for? That nobody's going to have that but you. That's an advantage. Never mind lah.
Yeah, but parents don't understand that. Not every parents understand the value of it.
I've been there as well. Like on 12 years old, I have a chance to go actually MSSM for taekwondo.
Oh wow!
But because I always beat up my brother at home,
banned from
yeah.
fighting.
Then my mom was like, "Okay, no more taekwondo." That's it.
Ayo.
I'm like, but during the time, I think
And
my
you
mom
were
was
already at that level.
Yeah, I'm 12 years old MSSM because I represent state as well.
Well, that's no joke. Hey, no joke. Because Malaysian Taekwondo is world class.
Yeah. So I have the chance. But I think my mom don't know about MSSM and they don't know about all this stuff. So they don't know how big it is. So they're just like, okay, you behave like that at home. That's it.
Habis.
No
joke.
Yeah,
That's
habis
on you though. That's on you for being a bad boy.
For beating up your brother.
Yeah, brother.
That's it. An Olympic medal ended. One punch to your brother's face.
12 years old.
Ayo. But it is funny. My mother didn't know. That's not her fault. But it is kind of just more around building the sport culture because like I'm blown away by the grassroots sports in Malaysia. There's a lot. I told you I played rugby here and I played high-level rugby here and I've been highly involved in the rugby community. And 25 years ago, we used to play touch rugby on a Saturday at Padang Astaka, Cobra Field in PJ. Be 20, 30 people, half the expats, half locals, run down there for a game of touch rugby. One of my old Selangor friends, he's now part of the big Royal Selangor Club, Fendi. He does a lot with Malaysian touch. They just had a tournament. And he told me they just did this big tournament and they had something like 26 or 30 teams, touch rugby teams at this tournament from Malaysia. Under 12.
Wow.
Not the total tournament, just the under 12s.
Okay.
And when I heard that, I thought, that's hundreds and hundreds of just under 12s here in KL playing touch rugby. Like there's math, and that's not expat kids. That's all local kids.
Cool.
So each team might have one little Matsalay kid playing on it, or a couple from the international school. But my first thought is, wow, has that grown? Like there's really good grassroots. And I think countries have to make a decision too. Would you rather have international success or a healthy population? I know countries like Canada think a healthy population is more important than just a medal.
Mm.
In the U.S., they're going to hate me for saying this, but I think they think the other way around. Never mind health, as long as we're winning all those medals.
Uh-huh.
But yeah, I think, it's like I said, I do see the healthy population of Malaysia growing, although things like obesity and all that are first world problems are Malaysian problems now. I don't know if Malaysia's first world status yet. I don't think it matters because I think we're already there, to be honest. It's a developed nation and it's got developed nation problems. But I do see, like when I came here, nobody went to the gym. Now you go down the mall, you see buff guys,
Yeah, you see buff guys,
you see
bulking,
girls,
yeah.
everybody's, you see the boot camps in the park, you see one thing the Kling Valley does well is the parks. You go to Titiwangsa Park, you go to PJ, you go to these big Desa City. Holy cow, are they packed? Running, jogging.
Auntie uncles is there dancing.
Yeah.
Tapping shoulders.
Even Taman Sapute, every morning there's got to be 20 to 30 aunties going up and down the hill, all pump, 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 pump. And I look at that and I think, when I got here, nobody did that. I used to go for a run. I'd jog at Bukit track by myself. And there would never be somebody joining me. So like you said, I do see good things happening. And I think the solution for sports, I'll give you an example. There's a good friend of mine, another one I want to mention, Jiwa Mohan. Jiwa Mohan is one of Malaysia's national hockey players. His brother, Jivan and Jiwa, were all part of the glory days back when I was working with hockey with Minawan and Saiful and Mandarjit Singh, Kevin and Logan, back sort of that early 2000 group when Malaysian hockey was top 5-10 in the world. And that batch specifically, and the new batch are equally as good. But Jiva started the Jiwa Mohan Hockey Academy, private. He's now got 5 centers, I think, Penang, Ipoh, Johor, 2 in KL. And they're driving, I think, I can't half the junior team. He's now got kids from his academy who are playing for Malaysia in the national junior team and cracking the ranks to the senior team. That's what I mean about the sports economy growing. And he's making his living off this. He's hired half the coaches working for him are ex-national athletes. So these people got coaching jobs. We're a partner with them as well. And I watch, and one of the reasons I partner with him is because I think this is how you grow sport. People have to take responsibility and they have to show that there's an economy in it. And so you've got parents paying hundreds of ringgit a month for the kids to play hockey. But the program is really good. He's got elite coaches playing and they're very well organized. And so other sports need to look at these models because think about this. Before, that was the responsibility of Malaysian hockey. But now this academy is helping fuel the national team. And that's how it works in Australia. Australia rugby doesn't pay kids from 12, like they're not like Manchester United. Their academy kids become their national team. Those are kids coming from clubs. And all those clubs are privately funded and, parents are paying money. And then all of a sudden, but the good kids are rising up. And because it's someone like Jiwa, who's well connected, he worked with the national junior program. He's in Malaysian hockey. And so the opportunities for these kids advance. And so you're a parent thinking, my kid loves hockey. Look at those 3 boys. They're on the junior team. Now they're at Bukit Sports School.
Yeah.
My boy has a route. He can be on the national team. And when you look at all those ex-national hockey players, almost all of them end up somewhere good. They get jobs. They have a khaki group. They help each other. Like rugby, it's all these sports that help. So when I look at academies like that, and I think this is really the drivers. We cannot look at KBS as the answer for sporting excellence. It's a community effort now.
Right.
And all the small community build up together.
Yeah.
All the small clubs build up together as well.
Badminton did this for years. You look at the Sadet brothers and all their academies and clubs, how many kids they put into those national programs.
Like I think it's Nusa, right? Then there's Ambang Jaya Badminton Club.
And they're all those guys have clubs. And the girls, I look at Sabrina and all these coaches out there coaching. You've got excellence at that grassroots level. But parents, be willing to invest in that, Find that timing. Like what blows me away, I told you earlier, I have the parents of 8-year-olds calling me from the US. And they're like, I got 4 kids. I want some of your products. And I recommend starting with, something simple. And he goes, no. I need the full suit. I'm like, well, full suits are $800 US. Yeah, I need 4 of them. My kids are 8, 9, 10, and 11. So that guy just spent $2,000 or $3,000 US in a phone call for those kids because they want the kids to have the best opportunity. I'm not saying a Malaysian parent has to do that, but I think the more people get involved and are willing to help grow that and see the value of a sporting experience for the future building, that's when the development of the country, I think, kind of jumps another level.
Mm.
But if you're waiting for the government to do it, they've got bigger problems.
Yeah, for sure. We are quite close to the end of the episode. We can talk on forever.
Yeah.
Yeah, but just a last few questions. One that I have is, as I mentioned in the beginning of the introduction, what separates good athletes from great athletes, from the champions? And what are the lessons that we can actually learn from that and apply to our daily lives? If you have any story to back that up, even better, like interesting stories.
Lessons to your daily lives. Honestly, it's the same answer all the time. Discipline. Okay. I read a great sports quote and it said, talent is not the hard part. Talent is easy. Everybody has talent. Now, discipline, that's the hard thing. Most people in the sporting world, there are some of the most talented athletes lose that discipline after a while. And so without discipline, you can't achieve anything, whether it's business, whether it's music. And so teaching kids discipline, this is why I always joke, I'm putting my kids in Chinese school. I never mind these international schools that teach some Western BS. They're going to get that with me at home. But I want them to be in Chinese school because I want them to learn discipline. That's the most important thing to learn, if you ask me. And there are certain sports that teach that. Combat and martial arts are one of them. So I've never met a successful athlete who doesn't have discipline. Second thing is, and let's not even talk about talent, because there's an argument for you kind of could become really good with okay talent if you're obsessed and passionate. And that's the other part, is passion. Whatever you do, you have to be passionate about it. There's an old saying in sport, you can't put in what God left out.
You can't put in what God left out.
Yeah. So what that means is, apply this to anything. If you're not doing what you are passionate about, you are eventually going to run out of your discipline, your interest, and all that, because it's not in you. You have to find out what's in you. You got to figure out, and this is not a religious conversation, but I'm going to use the analogy. You have to figure out what God built in you. What is your passion? Because we see a lot of athletes who are doing the sport because of their parents, because of popularity, because of a million reasons. And a good coach will know in a minute, and they'll look at that kid and say, like I said, you can't put in what God left out. This person does not have what it takes to become a champion. Now, that doesn't mean they have to stop the sport, but that means be realistic on what they're going to do. And if it's not coming from them, it's not coming. And so, like, there's a lot of young kids who, by the time they get 16, 17, 18, they're like, I'm kind of done with sport. I want to do something else. Well, once that's gone, don't fight it. If it's not there, it's not there, because I can tell you, it's very rare to find somebody who keeps that passion for everything that long. And so you can't push it. And that's why I always tell parents, the only way you're going to know if that child wants to do it is you don't push them. Will they want to do that? And if they don't want to do that, you're going to see pretty quick. Like if they come and say, Mom, I'm ready for badminton practice. Okay, well, there's a reason, rather than you chasing them all the time. Now, it doesn't mean parents don't have to say, all right, come on, let's get ready. You've got swimming class. And you're not doing it to make them a world champion. You're doing it so they learn how to swim, so they can save their life, or they can enjoy the water environment of this world. And that's it. And maybe that passion takes time. But if it's just coming from you, it's going to run out. And that's, that's a really important point. We joke about that. You can't put in what God left out. And if they don't have the discipline, the passion, the interest, and all those things, then maybe for sport, for them, it's just enjoyable. We can't get mad if a world junior doesn't become a world senior. It doesn't happen most places in the world. And so my advice would be to parents. I don't know who listens to this. All parents, remember this. Sport is an avenue to help your child grow. There are 4 sports your child needs to learn before the age of 10. This is that advice part. Number 1, you have to put them in swimming. I have friends who've died because they didn't know how to swim. I have friends who know people that drowned because they didn't know how to save them. I have many friends who can't enjoy 80% of the world because they can't swim. So put your kids in swimming until the point they can keep their head above water and maybe help somebody pull them along to the side of the pool. That's really important. Number 2, put them in a martial art. Minimum 2 years so that they learn discipline. That's it. And they learn the confidence that comes with knowing how to stand in front of somebody and not be scared. Yeah. But also they teach you how to use that. They don't teach you to fight, except somebody over there took it the wrong way. Don't follow our big friends.
Don't knock your brother out.
Yeah, don't fight your brother. You might lose your entire sports career. But a combat sport is really important. 3, put them in gymnastics. The single most important activity to get body awareness. Tumbling, standing, falling, moving, 360, balance, coordination, strength with your own body. And 4, put them in a team sport. Because only in that environment will they learn how to get along with others through struggle. Not just get along with others. So school environments on a project is good, but sports teaches you to get along with people through struggle. And those 4 lessons are why you're putting them in sport, because you're trying to give your kid the best skills for the future. Now, maybe they'll love one of those sports and they'll find a passion in it. But that's not what you're doing it for. And so parents, don't be focused. I don't care how crazy you are about football. I don't care if your kid's great at any of them. Be their support, not their coach. And that's a very different thing to do, because you're the most important person in the world to them. And you're like that almost for life. Anything that comes out of your mouth does things to that kid. And we all know that, because when we think about our parents right now, and I say, remember something your mom said to you when you were 10, you remember it already. And was it a good thing or a bad thing? I don't know. Maybe it's something that made you proud, and I can promise you that's still driving you today. Or maybe it's something that hurt you, and it's still affecting you today. And parents, the biggest mistakes is they kill the passion for the child. And they don't do it on purpose. They do it because they want the best, because they just don't know how to shut up.
Yes.
So don't make every discussion you have about the sport. Being sportive means this. Don't just drop them off at sport. Even if you're super busy, take the time to sit and watch. And don't comment after. Your child is aware that you are watching, and they are aware if you drop them off and leave. Drop them off and leave means you're supportive and you're giving them the opportunities they should have. But it means you don't care about those opportunities. It sends a different message. But if once in a while you can go down and think, I'm just going to sit at the pool. I'm going to actually do some work while they're swimming. And then when the swimming's done, and just say, wow, you were really good. That was cool. That will drive them.
Yeah, that means a lot to them.
Oh my God. So that's about being involved in the sport, not just giving them the opportunity. And I see kids who are disconnected from sport because they know their parents are just sticking me in here. They might like it because it's always fun when you're a kid with your friends. You go down to football practice, your mom drops you off, you play with your friends, but you don't care because your parents don't care. And so I always tell them, know this support. Support them on it, be positive about it, ask them about it rather than tell them about it. And this is very different. So you're at the table. Oh, and I noticed in soccer practice, you're not using your left leg. I told you should be using your left leg. Now you just think about that poor kid. They're just like, yeah. Can I just have my noodle, Dad? Instead of, how was to practice today? Did you try those drills? Is the left leg feeling any different or not yet? And they're just like, yeah, not yet. That's okay. Now they're not scared to talk to you about it. But if you just turn it into another thing that you're going to beat them up on, guess what's going to happen?
Yeah.
I hate sport.
Yeah, the more pressure you give them, I think the more reluctant they want to do it, because they felt that it's not enjoyable anymore. They felt like they have the pressure to be good and be a champion or whatever it takes, right?
Sport is a pastime first. Let it be a pastime. Your one goal with a child with sport, I don't care who you have, is that your child builds a passion for exercise and activity, because that's healthy. It's going to help them meet friends. It's going to give them confidence. Sport is the way forward. And you don't want to kill that. I'll share one last real quick story. We had an Olympic athlete. I won't tell you who. I won't tell you the sport. Just before the Olympics, they got injured. They lost the Olympics. I ran into them. Now imagine losing the Olympics. Imagine how much money we spent on that athlete. This is an Olympian. They got injured before the Olympics. I met them 1 week. Oh, no, God. 3 days after the injury. I met him at Bukit Jalil. I saw him. They came. I'm not even telling you male or female. They came skipping down the aisle. They were so happy. They saw me. Joey, how are you? And my first thought was shock. Why is that person so happy? That's not normal. They just lost the Olympics and they're happy. I've never met an athlete who thought that. I know what that looks like. I know how that feels. All happy. And I was like, hey, how you doing? Let's sit down. Tell me what's going on. I haven't seen you since you got injured. Like, what's going on? We sat down and then they told me everything. You know how happy they were? They were just waiting for this thing to break.
Really?
Waiting for it to break. And I knew immediately, I don't think that injury was accidental.
Waiting for it to break in terms of just want to skip
whole-
the Olympic.
Skip sport. I'm done. I was so
sport.
happy and now I got a reason nobody can argue with. I have a broken bone. But I look back and I looked at that and I remember thinking, and I won't say anything more because with family issues, the pressure, we talked about the pressure from the parents, very typical in these type of situations. And all they talked about was how the pressure's gone.
Wow.
And that's all they wanted. And they never came back to the sport. Now, we spent millions of dollars in that program. And here's where we failed. We failed to analyze properly, sort of from the mental training side, the stresses and pressure that person was feeling. And that person had been feeling that from a young child, which is typical pressure. And it's one of the reasons they succeeded, but in the end, it also cost us. And so this was a perfect story. And I remember I had this weird feeling. I walked away and I was telling a couple of friends, I was like, that was not accidental. The technical level they should have been at, that injury that impact they had should never have happened. Not at that level. Not 2 weeks before leaving for the Olympics. And I remember thinking, that's what happens when you push too much.
Right.
And we didn't pick that up. And the one thing I kept thinking is, how much money we spent for the last 4 years. It's gone like that. So you don't want to be that parent. You know, I really applaud the parents who are passionate and love it. Tiger moms, tiger dads, continue the pressure. But you yourself go to counseling to figure out how to be supportive of your kid. If all your parents taught you was to yell, then you have to make that change. And because you have to walk that balance, when they're lazy, like every kid is, and they don't want to go to practice, that's when you turn and say, look, you signed up for the year. You agreed to the year. You can quit after this year. But this year, you're going to practice every day. And when we sign up for next year, you tell me whether you want to quit. If you want to quit, okay, but you're going to finish the year. And that teaches them to follow through. Yeah. And I'm going to make sure you go to every practice. That's my job. But you're not quitting. You don't get that opportunity. You decided, you told me you wanted to play football. You're going to stay. Oh, I don't like the kids that do that. You're going to have to figure that out. And I think those are the kind of lessons that, are good for a parent and a child to work through. And it's not easy. Parenting's not easy.
Definitely.
It's none of that. But
something Steven going to learn very soon. Has to do that.
You're thinking about it now.
I'm
Okay,
thinking right now.
okay. How much
which
swim lesson going to cost this? Taekwondo cheap, never a problem. I can teach that.
Find Coach Joe.
Yeah,
Coach Joe. Buy some Exogen
For eight years old.
boy or girl?
Girl.
Oh wow. Okay, daddy's girl. She's already getting everything.
Yeah. Awesome. I mean, we could talk forever on this. Hopefully we have you back on the show.
Anytime.
Thank you for sharing all these stories to us. Before we end, where can someone find you and Lila?
Find me out in the jungle. Remember?
In Malaysia.
Yeah. I'm always out running out in the jungle, so you can find me out there. But you can find us. Our office is in PJ. You can find us at Lila, Lila. Lila. Well, we say Lila. LilaTeam.com. www.lilateam.com. Just reach out and get my contact through there. Our Malaysian audience, we always have time for, so we get people coming by the office all the time. Please do reach out. And questions on anything, I'm certainly always up for a conversation about sport and fishing.
Awesome. Fishing. And you're active on Instagram as well.
Yeah.
So we will put all this link in the description below so you guys can check it out. So thanks, Joe, for coming on to the show.
Thank you, guys.
Thank
It's awesome. Thanks so much for the chat. And keep up the great work. This is a blast.
Yeah, thank you. And hope to see Exogen suit on the streets, on the mall, everywhere.
Coming soon.
Awesome. Yeah, so if you guys enjoyed this episode, hit the like button, subscribe. That will help us grow the channel and bring more amazing guests. But in the meantime, you guys discover this journal. Don't keep it to yourself. Share it to the world. Me and Steven will see you guys in the next episode. Cheers.
Cheers. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Joe.
No joke.